Mishnah 7. This is page 572, chapter 5, Mishnah 7. It says, Asra nisim na'asu lavosenu b'beit hamikdash. There were 10 miracles that were performed for our ancestors in the base of Mikdash. We live in a broken world. There are things that happen in the physical world that we assume are nature, that are the natural course of how the world is supposed to work. But it's not true. It works that way because the world's broken. The way God created the world was with nature operating in a completely different fashion than the way nature works for us. When you come to Tisha B'Av, and they say mourn the destruction of the temple, and you sit down and say it's hard for me to mourn because I don't really get it. So here's a list that you can go through and it'll make you understand why it is you should mourn the loss of the temple. The temple was a microcosm for how nature is supposed to work. When God created us, put us in Gan Eden, here's how nature worked. Right? When Adam sinned and broke the world, nature changed. Right? So we live in a broken natural world. So let's go down the list. I want to show you how nature is supposed to work. And this is how nature worked in the base of Mikdash, and this is how nature worked in Gan Eden. And this is how nature will again work in the future. So it says, Lo, hifila isha mereach basar hakodesh. It says that no woman ever miscarried from smelling the aroma of the sacrificial meat. So when you get to Masechta Yuma, right, you learn Yuma, there's a Mishnah that says, if it's Yom Kippur, and a pregnant woman walks by the temple and smells the meat, and she's not a Kohen, and she says, I need that. Get me a piece now, or I will die. You give it to her. Even though she's not a Kohen, even though it's Yom Kippur, even though it's the Karbanos of Yom Kippur, you give it to her to eat until she says, okay, I'm satisfied, I've had enough. Even if her doctor says she doesn't need it. It's a pretty powerful concept, right? Have you ever in your life tried to do something good and had it misfire and you ended up actually hurting somebody's feelings or causing harm? Ever happened to you? You ever try to do the right thing and it just didn't work out right and you ended up damaging somebody? How would you feel if you're the Kohen Gadol and you're trying to do the service, the Avodas Hashem, and you kill somebody? They die from it. They miscarry from it. Right? The fact that things go wrong, that the righteous aims of people fail. I tried to fix up these two people and solve their problem. Two people were in a spat, and I tried to help them make up, and instead all I got them was fighting worse. Right? That's not nature. That's because the temple was destroyed. That's broken nature. The fact that things go wrong when you set out to do good and evil happens and harm befalls people, that is not nature. That's corrupted nature. In the temple, that never happened. In Gan Eden, that never happened. When you sit on Tisha B'Av and you think, oh, right, every time I've tried to do good and I've hurt somebody, it's because the temple's destroyed. When the temple's rebuilt, that'll be fixed. That's one of the miracles. He says, the sacrificial meat never rotted, right? Holiness has the power to transcend death and decay. That decay can be controlled. Right? We think it's natural that you go to the store and buy bananas and put them on the counter hoping you'll eat them Tuesday. And by the time you get to them Tuesday, they're rotten and there's little flies on them. Has that ever happened to you? Did you ever buy meat and the meat was rotten before you got to it? Right? Did you ever open up, they used to have the thing, they call it the crisper in the refrigerator. It's really the rotter. Right?
Mark Schiffline.
It's the rotter. You put stuff in there and it's a way of turning, lettuce into some sort of toxic soup. Right? Have your shoes ever worn out? Button pop off your clothes? When the Jews walked through on the clouds of glory, they walked from Egypt to Israel, right? It says their shoes never wore out, their clothes never wore out. The fact that there is rot and decay and entropy, and that physicality does not meet your needs and it fails you, that is not the way it worked in Gan Eden. It's not the way it worked in the temple. It's not the way nature's supposed to work. God created physicality to serve us. The fact that it rots instead and fails and decays is because the temple is destroyed and the world is broken. You ever had your stuff fail? You know, you go and buy something at the my kids hate buying toys at the 99-cent store because they know a 99-cent store toy is not going to last till Thursday, right? That's in this world, right? In the world of Beis Hamikdash, 99-cent store toys will last forever, right? It's a physical thing. It has no right to break. It has no right to break, right? You buy electronics, they should last forever. They have no right to break. They fail and break because the temple's destroyed. Nature does not follow the way it's supposed to follow. It's broken nature because the temple's destroyed and because God has been pushed out of the physical world. It says, no fly was ever seen in the place where the meat was butchered. It says, here you have hot summer muggy days, right? And they're butchering hundreds or thousands of cattle outside, right? No fly was ever seen. They don't come. It says, the Beelzebub has a devil for a son. What's Beelzebub? What's Beelzebub? Baal Zvuv, the Lord of the Flies, the master of the flies. Right? The outside guy, the other team's guy, their idea of the devil, it's the Lord of Flies. The flies represent Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, corruption, the ability to, they fly over to waste, they land on waste, they pick up corruption, they fly to something good and they spread it, right? That a fly ruins whatever it touches. It corrupts invisibly, right? That holiness has the ability to repel evil. That we think of physicality as the opposite of Kedusha, right? There's holy things and there's meat things. The whole idea of the slaughter was to make you understand that meat is holy. It's the conversion of the most physical. What's the most physical thing in the world? It's an animal. It's a walking, talking pile of meat with a nefesh, with a physical animal soul, with emotions and desires. It's pure physical. There's no kedusha to it. And then we can convert it into kedusha. We take this physical thing and shecht it and turn it to pure kedusha. That physicality, when invested with holiness, has the ability to push away corruption. The fact that we live in a world where we take physicality and turn it to corruption. Right? That we use meat, we use bodies to damage each other and damage ourselves. Right? That corruption of physicality is because the temple was destroyed. No Kohen Gadol was ever disqualified by a nocturnal emission. Right? You're playing without a net. You're coming up on Yom Kippur, right? And the Kohen Gadol, he needs to be pure tomorrow morning. Something happens to him tonight, he's not going to show up at the temple tomorrow, right? They're going to have to scratch him, put him on the disabled list, and bring in a substitute pitcher. And no one's going to say, oh, he must have hurt his hip, right? Oh, he must have strained an oblique. They're going to say, dude, you had an emission. And laugh at him. And he'll be, this is the biggest day of the year, and he'll be embarrassed. It says God did not allow people who are in the path of doing righteous things to be embarrassed. God looked out for you. You never stumbled. You never humiliated yourself. Right? God respected the honor of human beings. That's the way physical world's supposed to be. Right? No one mocked holiness. No one mocked uprightness. Right? We live in a society, you see it amongst kids. The guys, what a goody-goody loser, right? Our whole society is about mocking people who are righteous, right? It's because the temple's destroyed. That you can have a culture that people are embarrassed and ashamed of doing the right thing. No one wants to be a wuss. You want to be tough, right? You do good things, but you kind of hide it a little bit. You don't want people to think that you're too, Johnny be good. It's because the temple was destroyed. It says the rains never extinguish the fire, right? V'lo kibo hagashamim, right? Eish shel eitzei na'arocha. That you have an outdoor wood pile with a fire. You have rain. Geshem, Gashmamim. Yes, you have the spiritual side of fire, you have the physical side of rain. They cooperated with each other. The competing wills of the world, right? That there's multiple competing forces in the world. It says when God runs the world, they cooperate, they don't compete. That Geshem, Gashmiut, right? Physicality was never able to dampen the Eish HaTorah, the fire of the Torah. In our world, we are so afraid that Gashmius, that the physicality will dampen the spirit and fire of Torah. We got a whole society, we're probably the only people you've ever heard of who don't want their kids to get an education. Right? Because we're terrified that our kid will go to college and get an education and learn stuff and hang out with people that are too physical, and the physicality will destroy their connection to Torah, and they'll end up lost. And you have, people keep their kids away. But what are they afraid of? They're afraid of Gashmiut. They're afraid that physicality will destroy spirituality. It's because the temple was destroyed. There's nothing wrong. Physicality should support spirituality, right? Learning science and learning how the world works and learning all, art and literature and food and music. These things were all decided. All these physical pleasures of the world are supposed to be usable in the service of Eish HaTorah, of the fire of the Torah, right? In the time of the temple, the rain, the geshem of physicality, the rain never bothered the fire. No one's physical, you want to be a skier, be a skier. You want to be a painter, be a painter. Be a painter serving God. Be a skier who sees the hand and face of God. Right? But there was no contradiction between Gashmiut, the physical world, and the spiritual world. The fact that today we feel it so strongly is because we pushed God so far away from us. Because the temple's gone, and so we're terrified that our kids will be so enamored of the physical that they'll run away from the spiritual. Right? And so we try to hide them from it. It's something you have to figure out how to reconcile. It says the column of smoke was never disturbed by the wind. Right? It's an amazing thing. That the column of smoke that rose from the offerings that looked like a gray marble pillar. You could stand anywhere in Jerusalem, the environs of Jerusalem, and look that way towards the temple, 10 miles away, and see a pillar, a marble, basically marble pillar of smoke rising to the heavens. But the wind didn't dissipate it. Right? The wind never blew it. That it was a small continuing miracle that clearly every day at every moment exhibited his immanence, right? His presence and his rule. That the physical world bent itself, right? Wind blows, right? Smoke dissipates. Not that smoke, right? Just if you ever had a doubt, is God present in the world? You looked over there and you saw the marbly, slick, shiny column of smoke, and there's no question. The wind obeys his, smoke, entropy, airflow, fluid dynamics. The smallest details of the world shape themselves to his will. And if they can shape themselves to his will over there, they can shape themselves to his will over here. It's one of the great gifts that anywhere in the environs of Jerusalem, if you ever had an issue, you can just look and see. We're home, right? The omer, the showbread, right? The omer and the 2 loaves, or the showbread, were never disqualified. So, when you sit on Shabbos, you take your 2 loaves of bread, right? They represent the breads from the temple. It says the flow of parnasa, of physical bounty that comes into your life, flows through those 2 loaves. Right? The flow of physical bounty that flowed to the Jewish people week by week flowed through those 2 loaves. Right? They were a lens, some sort of physical cosmic lens. If you ever saw, Ghostbusters, they're building a giant temple as a lens to bring, Azul into the world, right? These loaves of bread are the lens that bring the flow of Parnasa into the world. It would be a real bummer if late Friday afternoon you discover that those breads were trafed up, were disqualified, were puzzled, and couldn't be used. Now, what's the nation going to use, right? You're playing without a net, right? The Omer, right? They got to show up with a bushel of, the proper bushel on that second night of Pesach, and you can't do it. You got no second chance, right? If it didn't work, if you couldn't gather it, if you couldn't get there, if it was puzzled, if it was ruined, you're lost for the whole year. You're just done. You're sunk. There's no going back. It says, in a place where you're playing without a net, where there's no margin for error, God never let us down. In all those generations, He never once let us down. Right? It's a comforting thing to know. Because sometimes, we're often playing without a net. And we're hoping that the boss is going to make it work. Right? For us and as a nation, He says He never let it fail. Not once. That they prostrated themselves in ample space. it says that they stood, crowded. When they bowed, the place opened up, right? There was room, everyone would fit. When you dropped your egos, there was always room enough for everyone. God says, if you cooperate with my children, I'll cooperate with you. Right? You give my son what he needs, I'll give your son what he needs. And when we're all into ourselves, it's crowded. But once we're just me and the boss, so he opened up the world. No one ever died of a snake bite in Jerusalem. I have a scorpion bite. Which one do they use here? There's neither serpent nor scase, right? You might get bit, but you're not going to die. You're not going to get injured. Because you have to understand that safety, security, comes from sanctity. Security does not ultimately come from Iron Dome, or missile to shields, or bullets, or guns, or snake bite cures. Ultimately, safety comes from sanctity. Security comes from sanctity. Right? Again, the temple's destroyed, so we have to work a little bit harder on it ourselves. But the way the world is supposed to work is, why am I safe? I'm safe because God runs the world. Right? I told you before in this class, when I was a little kid and I was afraid of monsters, my grandfather would say the Shema. Right? Why? Because the Shema reminds you that there is no such thing as a scorpion. There's no such thing as a snake. There's no such thing as a monster or a cancer or an economy or a job. There's just God. It's just the boss, and he loves you and he'll protect you. Security comes from Hashem. It doesn't come from snake venom killer. Right? Again, the world's broken, so we have to work a little bit harder ourselves. And the last, which is probably the biggest, to me, the biggest miracle, it says, no one ever complained and said, there isn't enough space for me. There may not have been enough space for him. It may have been pretty crowded. You may have had 3 people sleeping on the floor. Nobody ever complained. Right? It doesn't say no one ever found that there wasn't enough space for them, or no one ever had difficulty finding space. No one ever complained. Because we're all in it together. And you're my brother, and I love you. And if I need to move over an inch or two, I'll move over an inch or two. Right? You know, if you bend a little bit to accommodate your wife, don't get mad at her. She's your wife, you love her. You know? I'll move over on the couch to give her an inch, because she's my wife. I love her. That's how we were as a nation. No one ever had trouble finding, and no one ever complained. Everybody worked really hard to make it easy on everybody else. That's the way the world's supposed to work. It doesn't work that way because the temple's destroyed. It doesn't work that way because we live in a broken nature. When we look and we say, this is the natural world, it is the physical world, but it's not the natural world. The way the world runs for us is not the way the world's supposed to work. So that's the loss of the temple.